And the other thing he said that really struck me, he was talking about the drone program. He killed 10 times more people with drones than George W. Bush did. And he said, I never realized I would be so good at killing people.
He's a cold human being.
What is that? That's sociopathy.
Yeah, well, for sure.
You have to be a sociopath to even think that way.
Yes.
But he surrounded himself with other sociopaths.
The evidence that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment. There are multiple pieces of evidence and intelligence that confirm that fact. The implications of this are far-reaching and have to do with the integrity of our democratic republic. It has to do with an outgoing president taking action to manufacture intelligence, to undermine and usurp the will of the American people.
The shine of celebrity once made him untouchable, a politician turned cultural phenomenon who convinced millions that charisma was the same thing as leadership. But time has a way of stripping away the illusion, revealing the cracks beneath the glossy exterior. What's left is a record riddled with broken promises, inflated ego, and hollow victories. When Tucker Carlson and Tulsi Gabbard go after Barack Obama, the myth doesn't just wobble, it crashes, leaving behind the wreckage of a carefully manufactured legend.
The psychodrama between him and Obama is real. I don't think it is between him and Kamala Harris, but between him and Obama, it's real.
I remember Hunter Biden, who was my neighbor for many years, telling me more than once, when Biden was vice president, how much they despised Barack Obama. He despised Barack Obama.
Well, what he did to Joe Biden in 2016 to say, we're going with Hillary Clinton. That and the Biden family, that's as bad as it gets. That's as treacherous as it gets. And then in 2020, he didn't really support him until he had to, when it was just him and Bush.
Director Gabbard, give me your response to what we heard from former President Obama there. He's saying that none of this makes any sense, that this is a distraction. What do you say to that?
It's the art of deflection coming from former President Obama, as well as his friends who are still in Congress today, and Senator Warner and Congressman Jim Himes, really all basically saying that exact same statement, which doesn't actually address the issue that was revealed in great detail in the over 100 documents that we released last week.
The unraveling of Barack Obama doesn't come with fireworks, it comes with facts, with the kind of brutal clarity Tucker Carlson and Tulsi Gabbard thrive on. Because once you strip away the halo of magazine covers, the Netflix deals, and the sycophantic applause of late-night hosts, you're left with a man whose legacy looks less like hope and change and more like style over substance. Tucker and Tulsi don't just poke holes in the myth, they tear the whole tent down and set fire to the circus inside.
And so the day after the election, they go with this 16-page document and they say, Mr. President-elect, wait till you see the cool things we're doing all around the world. And they've sucked him in. They made him one of the guys. And then we get the feedback at the CIA. Oh, the president loved this. The president had a follow-up question on that. Oh, the president said, oh my God, when he read this.
It almost sounds like you're psychologically profiling the president.
Oh, I think that's exactly what they do.
And so they use the tools that they have employed for decades to subvert foreign governments, to subvert their own government.
Obama entered the national stage like a political rock star, a man who could sell "Yes, we can" as if it were scripture. But what happens when the applause dies and people start asking what actually got done? That's when the emptiness becomes unavoidable. For all the promises of unity, his presidency left America more divided than it had been in decades. He was supposed to be the healer, but instead the nation limped away from his tenure with deeper wounds, fractured communities, and a culture war boiling over. Tucker Carlson makes it clear, Obama was less a president and more a celebrity in chief, obsessed with the performance rather than the results.
Now that he's a Netflix producer, along with his 8-petaled wife, Michelle, he's producing more racial division. The latest is called Leave the World Behind. It's a fictional thriller about the collapse of technology and what humans would do with no phones or computers. The movie follows a family on vacation at a rental house, and one night they're visited by a father and a daughter who show up seeking shelter. They say their phones no longer work and they need a place to stay. So immediately the white family, because they're evil, that's encoded in their DNA, of course, is suspicious of the visitors because they're black. And it goes on and on and on like this. Here's a clip.
I'm asking for you to remember that if the world falls apart, trust should not be doled out easily to anyone, especially white people.
Can't trust white people. They're evil. This is the guy, remember, who became famous at the Democratic Convention in 2004 by telling us there is no white America, there's no black America, it's just one America. But of course, that's not really a profit model in politics, is it? So he's been stoking race hatred ever since, and the disarray around us is the result.
And Tulsi Gabbard? She doesn't miss when it comes to slicing through the pageantry. She highlights the hypocrisy of a man who campaigned as the peace candidate, promising to end America's endless wars, only to turn into the drone strike president, overseeing more covert operations and military interventions than the administration he criticized. Hope and change apparently translated into hope we don't notice the missiles and change the target coordinates. The irony writes itself.
The stunning revelations that we are releasing today should be of concern to every American. This is not about Democrats or Republicans. This has to do with the integrity of our democratic republic and American voters having faith that the votes cast will count. There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false.
Even Obama's most devoted supporters struggle to point to a defining achievement beyond Obamacare, which itself became a bureaucratic nightmare. He sold it as affordable, but premiums skyrocketed, coverage dwindled, and millions of Americans felt betrayed. The very people who thought they were buying into salvation ended up with higher deductibles and fewer choices. Carlson tears into this as the perfect metaphor for Obama's presidency. Great branding, terrible product. Like a flashy new phone that looks good in commercials, but dies after 2 hours of use. What Tucker hammers hardest is the arrogance. Obama didn't just want to be a leader, he wanted to be a monument, a living, breathing statue to his own greatness. He surrounded himself with adoring media who polished his every word into gold, who treated him less like a politician and more like a prophet. But when the cameras shut off, he was just another politician who couldn't deliver. For every lofty speech about transcending partisanship, there was another executive order deepening division. For every promise of economic rebirth, there was stagnant wages and communities still trapped in despair. Tulsi pushes the critique even further. She doesn't just dismantle the myth of Obama's foreign policy. The Arab Spring was supposed to usher in democracy. Instead, it turned into a nightmare of failed states, bloodshed, and refugee crises. Yet Obama walked away from it all as if shrugging at the collateral damage. Tulsi makes it clear that isn't leadership. It's cowardice dressed up as cool detachment.
The intelligence community had one assessment, that Russia did not have the intent or capability to try to impact the outcome of the U.S. election leading up to Election Day. The same assessment was made after Donald Trump was elected by the American people as president in 2016, defeating Hillary Clinton. And it wasn't until after that pulled President's Daily Brief document that the Principals Committee was called in the National Security Council, and President Obama then directed his Obama's DNI James Clapper to lead the effort to create this new intelligence community assessment that detailed not if, but how Moscow attempted to influence the outcome of the U.S. election.
But perhaps the most brutal part of their destruction lies in exposing Obama's obsession with his own narrative. While Americans lost homes, jobs, and faith in the system, Obama was busy curating his presidential library and planning the next Netflix production. He cashed in on his own story like a brand, while the very people who once believed in him wondered why they were left behind. Tucker nails it when he points out the sheer cynicism of a man who perfected self-promotion while America burned through division, debt, and distrust. Obama's defenders love to point to his eloquence, but eloquence doesn't build factories, eloquence doesn't fix healthcare, and eloquence doesn't stop wars. Democrats who came after him couldn't escape his shadow, trapped by his myth and unable to create anything new. He was so obsessed with being a historic figure that he left nothing but political stagnation in his wake. Hope and change became the empty slogan of a party chained to nostalgia.
It's in the room, there's a knock on the door. I open the door and he's standing there. And he's standing there with more coat, and he comes in, and it was just like a quick, rehash or rerun from the night before.
Exact same program.
Exact same program.
Was he smoking again?
Yep.
So Barack Obama smokes crack and then you perform.
And it's not just about policy, it's about the sheer disconnect between the man and the people he claimed to serve. While communities struggled with crime, joblessness, and broken schools, Obama was more comfortable at celebrity fundraisers, golfing at Martha's Vineyard, or giving speeches at $400,000 a pop. The populist champion somehow became Wall Street's favorite client, raking in millions from the very elites he pretended to stand against. Tucker Carlson zeroes in on this hypocrisy like a predator, reminding audiences that Obama's entire brand was built on the illusion of being one of us, when in reality, he was always auditioning for the approval of the ruling class. That betrayal didn't just tarnish him, it poisoned the public's faith in any promise of reform. People stopped believing not just in Obama, but in the idea that any leader could rise above the swamp.
Not in India, it doesn't.
Oh, this came out today, though.
Yeah,
I think it's clear why this is coming out today.
Yeah, so Obama's telling us like it's going to take forever to, we may have leaks in the pipes in polling stations.
If Kamala actually was surging, this tweet would not have gone out. So it's, whatever. We all know it. Politics is a game of self-interest. They don't want to look like fools at the end of this. If it goes longer, there's some probability that things could change in their direction. So yeah, I think he's tweeting according to his incentive.
Even the much touted legacy moments collapse under scrutiny. Obamacare, a bureaucratic mess that satisfied no one. The Iran deal, a temporary patch job undone the moment another president walked in. The Paris Climate Accord, empty promises from countries that never followed through. Each accomplishment was less a victory and more a photo op, designed to preserve Obama's image rather than change the world. Tucker and Tulsi exposed them for what they are, political props in a presidency built on optics. And the irony is that Obama knows it. That's why he spends so much energy controlling the narrative, writing endless memoirs, producing documentaries, lecturing about democracy from gated mansions. He understands that the history isn't on his side, so he's trying to write his own before the truth catches up. Tucker and Tulsi aren't letting that happen. They rip away the curtain and reveal a man desperate to be remembered as a giant, but destined to be remembered as a salesman who couldn't deliver the product.
They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't. The report that we released today shows in great detail how they carried this out. They manufactured findings from shoddy sources. They suppressed evidence and credible intelligence that disproved their false claims. They disobeyed traditional tradecraft intelligence community standards and withheld the truth from the American people. In doing so, they conspired to subvert the will of the American people who elected Donald Trump in that election in November of 2016. They worked with their partners in the media to promote this lie, ultimately to undermine the legitimacy of President Trump and launching what would be a years-long coup against him and his administration.
By the time Tucker and Tulsi are done, the shine is gone. The myth of Obama doesn't look like inspiration anymore. It looks like delusion. He was never the transformational leader he pretended to be. He was the world's greatest political marketer, a man who mastered presentation while fumbling the very substance of governance. Decisions were weighed less on merit and more on optics, as though the White House was a stage and he was the lead performer. He played the role of philosopher king with ease, but behind the curtain, he left a mess of indecision, half-baked strategies and policies that looked good on a teleprompter but faltered in practice. Tucker Carlson seizes on this contrast with surgical precision, painting Obama not as the statesman he wanted the world to see, but as an actor too comfortable with applause to recognize the damage happening offstage.
What we saw occur here, as the documents we released detailed, was that we had a sitting president of the United States and his cabinet and leadership team, quite frankly, who were not happy with the fact that President Trump had won the election, that the American people had chosen Donald J. Trump to be the next president commander-in-chief of the United States. And so they decided that they would do everything possible to try to undermine his ability to do what voters tasked President Trump to do.
Tulsi Gabbard then strikes at the core of his foreign policy legacy, the very area where he once claimed superiority. She points out that the famed pivot to Asia amounted to little more than diplomatic jargon, a buzzword policy that fizzled before it ever materialized. While he spoke eloquently about reshaping America's role on the global stage, the truth was that allies felt neglected, rivals saw weakness, and adversaries exploited the void. For all his lofty rhetoric about global leadership, the scoreboard told a different story. China expanded influence, Russia grew bolder, and the Middle East descended deeper into chaos. The man who campaigned on transparency presided over one of the most aggressive crackdowns on dissent in modern history. It was a betrayal not just of political opponents, but of the very ideals he pretended to embody.
And like I said, the only reason I had come out about it is I had reached out to the campaign even in 2007, only because I saw all these kids getting excited about it.
Okay, wait, so how did that end?
Same way. You get off, you finish smoking, you leave.
Thanks, bye?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. What did you think of him?
I thought it was interesting.
Tulsi sharpens the knife by highlighting the hypocrisy of someone who claimed to champion peace and democracy abroad, yet armed authoritarian regimes and oversaw drone campaigns that left devastation in their wake. What makes this dismantling sting is the undeniable gulf between Obama's promises and outcomes. His defenders still cling to the line that he inherited a mess, but 8 years later, the mess remained, only layered with new problems of his own making. The Affordable Care Act became a bureaucratic labyrinth, pitched as a cure-all, but delivering skyrocketing premiums and limited choices. His economic recovery benefited Wall Street far more than Main Street, widening the very wealth gap he claimed to address. Tucker doesn't mince words here. Obama wasn't the champion of the little guy. He was the polished salesman for an elite class that adored him precisely because he made inequality look stylish.
Then President Barack Obama, CIA Director John Brennan, and Hillary Clinton, among others, took the world on a wild goose chase to try and take down their political enemy, Donald Trump, no matter the casualties along the way. DNA Tulsi Gabbard is now calling for prosecutions, revealing declassified documents from the Russia collusion made-up investigation, which she says detail a treasonous conspiracy by officials at the highest level of the Obama White House.
Tulsi hones in on the cultural cost of his leadership. She argues that his presidency, far from uniting, deepened divides by treating dissent as illegitimate and branding opposition as moral failing. Instead of fostering dialogue, he perfected the art of dismissive condescension, a smirk and a clever line in place of genuine engagement. This approach didn't heal America, it hardened it, leaving a nation more polarized than ever. The irony, she notes, is that the man hailed as a healer of divisions may go down as one of the great accelerators of cultural conflict. Tulsi adds that this constant need to remain relevant underscores the hollowness of his legacy. If it were truly secure, he wouldn't need to keep propping it up with endless PR campaign.